Let's do astrology book recommendations. A few of you guys have asked this, so we're gonna do maybe like beginner, intermediate, advanced, and then some other ones in there. So this was actually my first astrology book, so this is gonna be for beginners. And it's actually, believe it or not, it's a pretty good beginner-friendly book. It covers a lot. It's not the only astrology book you'll ever need, but it is a good place to start. It covers all the basics, and you can kind of get a good feel for like your natal chart and some advanced techniques as well. And my all-time favorite book for beginners, I have read this book numerous times, The Inner Sky by Forrest. This is certainly a classic. It is probably my number one recommended astrology book. It's a great book. So highly recommend him. Anything by him, but first and foremost, The Inner Sky. Also, anything by Linda Goodman is going to be fantastic. This is just the classic sun signs. Highly recommend any of her books as well. You know, this is only sun signs, but you can apply this to other planets as well, not just the suns. But also, I would highly recommend getting some sort of like solar system or astronomy book, just like basics of our solar system. I just got this at Barnes & Noble, but just something to give you a little more astronomy-based information would be very helpful. Now we're getting into more, I would say, intermediate, although this does have some beginner-friendly things. Parker's Astrology is a classic. Definitely, if you like collecting nice books, this is a beautiful book to have on your bookshelf, but it does have a lot of information on it. It's not exactly cheap, but it does cover everything from beginner to advanced techniques. I mean, there's some very advanced techniques in here that I haven't even mastered, but it has everything. It even has an ephemeris, and that's another thing I would recommend. And it's nice because it has colored pictures, but definitely get an ephemeris if you do not have one. So this one is like beginner to intermediate, I would say. It's The Houses, Temples of the Sky by Deborah Houlding. This is a great book for learning the houses from a traditional Hellenistic point of view, but it also gives you interpretations for modern day Western astrology as well. But it focuses on the traditional meanings of the houses. So this is a great one. As far as aspects, I haven't found a whole lot of books that are fabulous, although this one has been my favorite so far, Aspects in Astrology by Sue Tompkins. And this one, it isn't so much like a cookbook. Like a lot of these cookbook books are not, you know, it's helpful sometimes to learn, but it's not always going to be, you know, you can't really do astrology like like cookie cutter cookbook astrology. It just doesn't work like that. So this one is better because it talks about the energies of the planets, and then you have to put it together. So it's not going to be something that you learn overnight. It will come with practice and time. But I just like the way that she lays it out better as opposed to reading things out, because in cookie cutter aspect books, they are, you know, you look for your specific aspect, like Sun sextile Saturn, you know, and not everybody that has Sun sextile Saturn is going to present themselves with those qualities, because you have to look at the chart entirely. So sometimes it's helpful to have books like this on hand, but I would recommend something more like this if you're learning the aspects. Technically, any of the books that are focusing on a particular subject are going to be more in the advanced category, but just for starters, Pluto, The Evolutionary Journey of the Soul by Jeffery Green. This is another classic. He was the founder of Evolutionary Astrology, which is the type of astrology that I practice. So if you're not interested in evolutionary astrology, you probably won't like this book. But, you know, evolutionary astrology focuses on Pluto and the nodes of the moon. So this is, you know, it's a great place to start for evolutionary astrology. Also, The Inner Sky. Forrest is an evolutionary astrologer, but he's not as heavily fixated on Pluto. And if you're just looking for, you know, tropical Western astrology, you can still read The Inner Sky, but he is an evolutionary astrologer. But this is a good place to start if you want more information on Pluto and evolutionary astrology in general. I guess in keeping with the theme of Pluto, if you guys have a heavy Pluto in your chart or heavy Scorpio even, Healing Pluto Problems is a great book. Donna Cunningham, as well as if you guys happen to have a Hades moon. Really, anybody that has a heavy Pluto can read this book, but I prefer the Hades moon. But if you have a Hades moon, which is Pluto in contact to the moon, this is a wonderful book, and Healing Pluto Problems. For a book on the nodes, which everybody should really be super familiar with the nodes, whether you're an evolutionary astrologer or not. Astrology for the Soul by Jan Spiller. Anything by her is really good. I think she has a couple synastry books, which I haven't read, but I've heard that they are good. And if, this book was really good, so I assume her other ones are. But this is on the nodes of the moon. And then I'm trying to think what else. And how could I forget the Revolutionary, Cosmos, and Psyche. This is a book that everyone should read, whether you are into astrology or not. This is a book that if you have an astrology skeptic in your life and they're, somewhat committed to reading something that's a little bit intimidating, give them this book. This is the first book of its kind, and it's really the only book to really go through the course of history, and he basically goes through history and shows us how the planetary alignments at the time aligned with different events in history. And it takes a while to get through. It's very scholarly and intimidating, like I said, but it probably took me close to a year to get through this thing, but it is worth it. And he is very reputable. So yeah, Richard Tarnas, Cosmos and Psyche. He has some other books I haven't read, but definitely at least get it and scan through it and have it on hand. But it's definitely worth it to get all the way through it. So yeah, those are my main astrology book recommendations. I do have more. I have some books on synastry and things like that, but I think that's enough for you guys to start with. I can do further videos on other astrology books also as I'm reading them. I'm usually always reading at least one astrology book, but I'm one of those people that reads several books at a time. That being said, I will make a video like this on spiritual development books because I do have a lot of those. It's, astrology isn't my only passion. So I will make another video on spiritual development books and, maybe self-help books as well. But yeah, if you guys want to book personal readings with me, as always, shoot me an email or a DM on any platform. I love you.